Hello, it's West Pacific Market Analytics, and it's Glenn here as we wrap up the week here on Friday. And I've been working on putting together this QQQ and SPY report, and we're going to be featuring this more often, but maybe not as quite as many models as what I want to show you as we start down this road today. But it's pretty interesting what I've got to show you. We'll see how things start setting up here heading in the next couple of weeks. And I want to show you some ideas around some of the things I've been sharing over on the Twitter feed on some of these ideas. But here you go. Let's get into this. Again, the idea on the QQQ and SPY is we're going to make this more frequent, make it more of a trading-based report so you can get a good idea of how to trade what's coming and be in sync with the next move as we look to finally finish off this just absolutely crazy blow-off into a pretty nasty looking jobs report. But look, the data doesn't care about the jobs report. It doesn't care about anything. It only cares about the momentum and the velocity that we see within the market structure. So let's jump right into this. If you, of course, want to, hit the like, hit the subscribe. If you want to get a hold of me, I'm at destinytrading@gmail.com for joining the Discord. Or, we pretty much share a lot of information over there. This is where all the models are posted. I share on these videos, and they're there for you to review at any time, including a lot of modeling that I don't even put out onto the videos that is posted over there on that site. So it's going to be really important as we go forward here, and it's going to get to be a pretty tricky market ahead. So let's jump out of here. Let's get right into it. The disclaimer, these charts and updates for educational and entertainment purposes only. Please read it. And have a good weekend. All right, let's look at it. Now let's start off right here in the QQQ SPY section of the West Pacific Market Analytics Discord page. This is where all the models are posted. Let's start with this first idea that I call struggling. This is a model of the compact advancers here. So you can see in the compact advancers, when we're looking at the momentum flow statistics here, you notice this big bowl. Isn't that a nice looking bowl right there in the velocity? Now this model's going back here into the 2000 corrective move. You can see it coming down into the velocity. You can see the decades long and could be centuries long V-channel momentum building up here over a huge amount of time, going way back, decades and decades in time. And you can see that that is saying that the market eventually is going to have to go higher. But early on we had velocity coming out, and thus we had this initial corrective move. Then you can see we had this rally because it's getting pulled up here by the momentum channel and the dot curve, which is rising. And then you can see we had another corrective move back down because you notice the velocity still had not built back up. It was still trying to find a low. And you notice also that out of that rally, the trend built up, and then the trend started back down here, and we had the corrective move of 2007. And it's kind of crazy how everybody was calling this the big crash of 2007. I really don't. These are just corrective moves in the trend, until we get the momentum top in the model, which we now have up here. This is starting to become a whole new dynamic now as we'd head out to the right side here. These are corrective moves in a very bullish looking momentum flow based analytical model. We're entering a whole new era out here, and I tell you, this was a great time to be alive, beautiful, and out here it's just, I don't know what even to say about it yet. There's no need, there's money to be made, just trade it, but it's going to be a whole new paradigm because as you can see, the momentum channel is now topped out. You can see this rising velocity has now topped out and is rolling over. And notice how long that this whole topping pattern took here. The momentum topping back here, coming up into the top around 2019, 2020, topping out, right up there as we were still moving higher because price had to move up here into the channel. And you notice this entire time, actually, not even before this 2020 corrective move, which was absolutely nothing, and understand that this whole thing had to rise up because we had to go up here. And then you could see with this corrective move, and then you can notice how the trend built up. So you notice as long as the trend is rising and velocity is rising, that's going to tug up on the market. Now somehow we did get this corrective move back down here in this particular model, but we still had the trend rising and the velocity rising. But of course now we're in the V channel, and we did have a little bit of a top out here in this secondary trend which obviously played on the topping of this coming down, but it still had to go higher because momentum was still only topping. Now you can see this whole structure, which is pretty much all of 2024 and all of 2025, how price is just floating up here. It's really not going anywhere. It's just chopping around here, trying to figure out what it wants to do. But you can see now that the trend is breaking, the velocity is rolling over, and once this trend, it looks like it's already started breaking here. Let's zoom in on this. You can see a trend bar rising up with this last rising, now another trend bar breaking, and you see the velocity starting to roll over. So you can see in this bigger picture model that this is trying to put in some sort of top up here in the compact. Now the compact's been the strength. So you can see in this big picture model in that compact advancers, it's not a very pretty looking picture. Now let's look at the QQQ here. Okay, the QQQ you can see is still building up. You notice back here, we're going way back in time. I just want to show you this. As long as we're in velocity, we're getting pulled up, and then you notice here's this big corrective move finally down in velocity. You notice we really didn't even have a blip in the QQQ. You notice the velocity was coming out here, and the trend wasn't even moving down, and we had this little corrective move in 2020 with velocity building right back up rapidly. And the velocity obviously is a measure of money flows coming into the market, money flows coming in. So you can see just this huge ball of money flows, and then of course that peaked out, and then we had a collapse, which was this 2022 move lower. Now we didn't continue to go down because there's other reasons for that besides just one model. But you can see we came back down, and then slowly the trend built back up, and you can see as we chopped around here, trend redeveloped. Doesn't matter if price is above trend, trend started to build back up right about here, and as long as trend is rising, that's going to tug up on price. So you can see going into 2024, even this little corrective move, that was just a corrective move because we were a little bit too high above trend here, and we had that corrective move, and then we started to top out. So here's that first move lower. Now you notice in that first move lower, that happened as the velocity peaked out. So velocity is now rolling over here on the QQQ, but notice into that low, the trend was still above here, trend redeveloped. So we're going to want to watch now if this looks like it's it. And I do think that's it because if you look at the bigger picture model, you notice in the QQQ that the velocity is really weak. You can see that velocity has been coming out since 2022. Notice here we rallied up to velocity and then we broke out. Well, we can rise up because you notice down here, right about here, we broke out velocity. And the rule is it doesn't really matter where price is. As long as trend is rising, then price can rise. And so we've had this trend rising here out of that April 23 period and just rising, rising, rising. Again, here's that corrective move. And you can see into that corrective move, the trend started to break. Again, it's getting too high above velocity, so we're going to want to see how long this takes. And you can see already we're getting a big trend bar breaking down here, and velocity starting to break lower. So this could be indicative that the QQQ is ready to top out. Now let's go here real quick before I go into this other Qs model I think is really important. This is a model that was designed for dangerous moves in the market. So you can see this is a quarterly model that I'm looking at here, and notice we've only had this signal go off 3 times here. Notice the signal went off. This is quarterly, so look, this signal went off 1 year before the 1987 move, and then it went off again here in 2000, and you notice there's almost 4 candles there before it really started to roll over. So it's almost a full year after the signal went off. And then notice here in 2025, we've got a double signal this time. And again, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 candles here. So we've got about a year since these 2 candles, or the second candle, rose up here. There's 4 signals. So we've got a 4-year period, a 4-year period, and a 4-year period. This is interesting. And every time we had some sort of big move down. You notice we had the 87 crash move, which was, everybody's talked about that for years now. I don't even call it that because in the scheme of thing, it just looks corrective. And then, of course, we had the 2000 move. And then notice we didn't get a signal here for this move down in 2007. Now that doesn't necessarily mean anything. It just means that after the signal, typically we've had a big move down. So this is flashing a warning here. And notice that yes, the trend is breaking. We didn't get the trend forming here because being this big a model, it wasn't able to model that far back in time. At times you get a trend break in the data, but you notice here we had the trend breaking down all the way down here as we had this 2000 corrected move. So the trend is breaking, and this signal is indicative. This is a warning shot across the bow. So we want to be careful of that. Now let's go down here to this QQQ model that I was showing my members. I think this is really interesting. Look at this topping pattern right here. Notice this whole topping pattern here, which started, the top of the beginning of this move was down here starting in 2024. Here we were coming off that low in 23. But notice this, if I pull in on it here, it's really interesting. So notice as we came up, we broke above the dot curve. So the dot curve is typically, you don't want price to be above the dot curve. But notice our rising signal here, you see this orange signal, and now that signal is turned over at what I call this E top here. Now look at this beautiful looking megaphone pattern. We come up, we put in an A on the channel perfectly, we come down for a B, we hit the channel again perfectly for a C, we come down to that last low for a D, and now we've come up to complete an E, and the signal's rolled over. Now what that says to me, looking at this massive megaphone top in the Qs, above the dot curve and above the V channel, we should be pricing down in here, right? We should be pricing down here. The gate is at 421. I mean, if I wanted to, I tell you, you should be taking a bet here, 583, bet 421 on the Qs, because it's very much going to go here and most likely lower. Somewhere on the way down, we're going to get some bounces in that. But I would say into year end, we're heading down, back down to retest this area here. We're obviously with a BD formation, we're going to break below the channel. So 421 is the support, but it can price below this 401, because if you draw that 401 out on this declining line, this gets us down into the 300s. So the final low will be in the 300s, but the easy bet is to bet short on the Qs if you want to play some put options at 421 and give them a little bit of time. You know, don't extend them out too tight. This move could be down very quick like this. It could be a rapid move down, or it could take a bit more time. I got to work on the time component of it, but for sure this is a great bet on the Qs. I mean, that model is very solid, very indicative of a large looking topping pattern. Now I don't think I necessarily short it just yet. You can see that we see this idea of exhausting time here in this particular model. We're looking at the QQQ options here. This is modeling the options of the Qs. And you notice we came up, we got above the, again, above the dot curve, which had topped out back here in 2023. Now this red needs to price into this V channels. I call it the dot curve or exhausting time, and it doesn't change, right? So you can see it's moving down here as we head out in 2026. So we for sure have a corrective move now, which isn't going to be straight down. You know, it's probably going to come down to a lower low. You know, we're going to come down, then we're going to rally back up, then we're going to come down, then so we're going to ping down and up, ping down and up as we work lower into 2026. Now you notice that it's just rolling over here, the trend's just rolling over this red, and you notice how much this red obviously dictates the Qs itself. But it definitely is topped out. It looks very topped out, so we're going to have to see. Now I don't think it's quite ready yet, because I want to show you the reason why. If you look at this close-up of the Q model, we're only looking at 2 months here, right? So if this is the major top of that pattern, we should see it here. So here's this idea where we've already got the velocity rolling over. So you see the velocity's rolled over here back in the late July, right? Late July started coming down, and so velocity's coming out. But you notice the trend really hasn't broke yet. So you notice as we've had the sell-offs, it's worked its way back up to trend. We've had a sell-off, worked its way back to trend, sold off, worked its way back to trend. So look, it's topped out again right here. It's not going any higher right now. That's it. We've got a high here on Friday. But what we're going to have to see is we're going to have to see all of a sudden this trend really starting to roll over and develop downwards. So that may take another week or two yet. We're going to have to see. So really, if you want to have a surefire bet or surefire short on the market, you're going to want to wait for this complex to roll over. And we can see that also in the SPY model. Let me go down here. I put two together here, SPY options and QQQ options. And so we're going to be watching that top. And you can see that same idea in the SPY. The SPY even looks a little more stronger. So look, there's the SPY and there's the Qs, which are showing a little bit more of a break in the pattern. But let's go over here and look at the SPY. So you can see we've got the velocity topped out here in August, and we can still see the trend just flatlining. And there was our price top right back on trend yesterday, and then today we had a little bit right here. So this is today and yesterday right in here, again topping out on trend at 652 here. So we're looking pretty toppy right now, okay? But we still have to see. You see this trend just working its way upward here. You notice it's still kind of trending up. It's at kind of its high, a little bit higher here. But until we see the trend roll over, and I will be updating you in this report when that happens, and we'll be keeping a close eye on that in future videos. I'll put up another video once it looked like that's ready to go. Now let's just go down here really quick and just finish off with a few technical models that I found kind of interesting. Let's look at an actual model of the compact. I'd rather look at that than the NDX because I like to look at the broader compact. And you notice how perfectly the compact likes to follow the velocity in this particular model. You can see trends spiking down, price down, trend spiking down, price down. You get the idea. But we can see over here now on the right side, you notice as we rolled over, we had the velocity break in, and then we had this big balloon down here in trend, and then it rallied back up. But notice price is up here, right? Now, you notice how perfectly pretty much throughout the model, we have been able to price right to the blue. So we're up here, and now the blue is down here, right? Here's our low at 1400, here, but we should right now be pricing in here, which puts us up at around the 15,000, 16,000 level. So this is mispriced here, right? This is not looking like it wants to go higher. It's starting to roll over. And so we're going to want to watch the structure. So we're watching the structure over on the Discord platform for when this is going to roll over. But right now we're already mispriced here. We're too high. You can see we were mispriced here and being mispriced. And then as this really started to break down, it rolled over rapidly. So I'm expecting potentially the same thing to happen here. This start to build lower, this continue to float a bit more, and then the whole thing collapse. You can see here in this particular model, same idea. Notice this red bar right here is, let's bring in, this red bar here is right back up to where it's supposed to price at the trend. But notice this red has popped out here. So at that 4,100 low, we were then broke out above the dock channel. This red line needs to price down here in the V channel. Now what's interesting, you notice that every time it topped out on the V channel, it finished. So it topped out on dock here, topped out on dock. You see the picture all the way across, going all the way back here to 2015. It spiked above it, right? You see it? But it always topped out on it until we had this 4,100 breakout here. Now that could be a technical issue as we're seeing in some of the other modeling to complete a top, but this red has to price back down in here and then stay there. Once this trend breaks back down, you notice the velocity is rolled back over now. You notice the trend is breaking. Price is done up here. It's going to be very hard for price to stay up here as this whole complex has got to price back down into the channel. So you can see that kind of idea when you look at some of these other technical data models. And I had one other one for you here. This is going all the way back to 1996. And you can see how the market follows this line in the model really, really well. So notice the same idea again, coming down, V channel developing up. And now notice how our V channels here, our dock curve topped out right here in 2018, 2019. You see right here, 2018 to 2020. Right there is where the curve topped out. And then you notice we topped out right here in 2022, and then we headed down. But somehow we were able to come out of that low and break out here. This is not priced right, and it's formed a sort of harmonic swan-looking formation here. You notice that rising harmonic swan again is kind of like a megaphony looking pattern. We had a triple top to start it off there, and there, going all the way back in time, but it was able to break out and form this other topping pattern. But right now what I want to see is this line to roll back over and head lower. So you can see when this line was heading lower, the market was heading lower, and again, but this has to come down and price here. Trend well below, V channel wear below. So this is all mispriced. So we know at some point this has all got to break lower and price below. It's not higher. So don't listen to the pundits that are saying the market's going higher. So I've got a lot more that I'm going to be bringing at you. We're going to add into this QQQ Inspire report more going forward. I just wanted to get some of these initial models out on this first report. That I used to do this kind of report, but I'm revamping it. I'm bringing in more trades, more trading information for you to make money. That's the road forward now at West Pacific Market Analytics. It's all going to be trading based, letting you know when it's a safe time to go long, a safe time to go short, when to play the bounces, when to prepare for the coming downward corrective move. All of this is going to take time. It's going to be very, very volatile up and down as we make our way into year end. Going to have rallies. We're going to have some pretty large rallies back up to the mean, but it's going to start to work itself lower here pretty soon now as we finish off. And I put up an NVIDIA model. I showed you that. That definitely looks done, heading lower. The whole complex looks lower. I mean, Apple's looking good, Microsoft's looking good. It all looks topped out. And I'm going to present that. I'm going to do another report around our top 10, which those models are in. And we'll get a top 10 report out maybe this weekend to update you on a few of those things. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great weekend. Glenn out.